was heavy with tension, as though it carried secrets that no one dared to speak aloud. My mother-in-law, draped in her freshly ironed deep purple dress, stood before the mirror. She examined herself with meticulous care, her hands gliding over the fabric to smooth invisible wrinkles. Her golden bracelet caught the light, dazzling in its brilliance. It was new, that much was clear. I hadn't seen it before, an extravagant addition to her already abundant collection of jewelry. My heart burned with envy, the flames fueled by the injustice I felt every single day. She caught my gaze in the mirror and smirked, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. Was it pride, triumph, or was she mocking me? Her voice broke the silence, sharp and commanding. "Place it there carefully," she said, pointing to the bed. I picked up the dress she'd thrown at me earlier and spread it across the bed with deliberate care. Every crease was meticulously smoothed, not because I cared, but because I couldn't bear her scorn if I failed to meet her impossible standards. As I worked, a storm brewed within me. Resentment, jealousy, and bitterness churned together, threatening to spill over. How could she live like this? How could she adorn herself so boldly, so shamelessly, while I withered away in the shadows of my own life? 6 months. It had been 6 long, agonizing months since my husband, Idris, had left for his job overseas. 6 months of endless silence, broken only by the occasional call that always felt more like a formality than a connection. He never left his phone on for me to call him. No, he controlled the narrative, deciding when and if we would speak. In those 6 months, I had learned to bury my own needs, my desires, my very identity. And in those same months, my mother-in-law had flourished. She grew younger, it seemed, while I aged a lifetime. Tonight was no different. She prepared herself with the same meticulousness she did every evening. Her hair, freshly dyed with henna, gleamed under the light. Her nails, painted a shade that perfectly matched her dress, sparkled as she adjusted her bangles. She was a vision of confidence, a woman who had refused to let the years dull her shine. Meanwhile, I stood there, a silent witness to her transformation, invisible in my own home. At precisely 5 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped a beat. It was my father-in-law's time to return from work. I hurried to open the door, grateful for the distraction. There he stood, his gentle smile lighting up the dusk. His presence always carried a sense of calm, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. "Peace be upon you," he greeted warmly, placing a hand on my head in a gesture of affection. I managed to smile and asked, "Should I make you some tea, Abba?" He chuckled softly. "Not today. Your mother-in-law's tea is unmatched. I'll wait for hers." His words stung, though I knew they weren't meant to. It was yet another reminder of my insignificance in this household. My attempts at kindness, at carving out a space for myself, always seemed to fall short. I stepped aside to let him in, watching as he made his way to the living room. Moments later, she emerged from her room. My breath caught in my throat. Tonight, she looked different, radiant. There was an energy about her, an excitement she couldn't hide. Her smile lingered a second too long, her movements were a touch too graceful. Even my father-in-law noticed. For a moment, they exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them that I couldn't decipher. "Sajila," he said, addressing her with an affection that felt almost foreign in its tenderness. "Make me some tea, will you? Then let's go out. Dinner, maybe?" She nodded, her cheeks flushing a soft pink. "Of course," she replied, her voice carrying a sweetness I had never heard before. "Chai first, then dinner. Anywhere you'd like." I stood frozen in the doorway, watching this exchange unfold. It was a scene I had witnessed countless times, yet tonight it felt different. There was something about the way she looked at him, the way she carried herself, that stirred a deep unease within me. Was it jealousy? Perhaps. Or was it something more? A nagging feeling that I was missing a crucial piece of a puzzle. As she disappeared into the kitchen, I returned to my room, my mind racing. I picked up my phone and dialed Idris's number, knowing full well it would be in vain. The call didn't go through, just as it hadn't the last 100 times I tried. He kept his phone off, claiming it was to save on roaming charges, but I knew better. It was his way of keeping me at arm's length, of ensuring our conversations were on his terms. I threw the phone onto the bed and sat down heavily, my head falling into my hands. Life had become a burden, a weight I could no longer carry. The loneliness was suffocating, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. Idris's absence had hollowed me out, leaving behind a shell of the person I used to be. Even the thought of looking in the mirror repulsed me. What would I see? A stranger? A ghost? The sound of laughter broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. I looked up to see my mother-in-law and father-in-law standing in the hallway, their voices mingling in a symphony of joy. He whispered something to her, and she giggled like a young bride. My chest tightened. How could they be so happy, so carefree while I drowned in my misery? That night, as they left for dinner, I stood by the window and watched them go. She walked with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, her arm linked with his as though they were a couple newly in love. The sight filled me with a bitterness I couldn't shake. They had each other. They had everything. And I had nothing. But as they disappeared into the night, a thought struck me. What if their happiness wasn't as perfect as it seemed? What if, behind the smiles and laughter, there were cracks in their facade? The idea took root in my mind, growing stronger with each passing moment. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew one thing. I couldn't ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. The house felt empty without them, the silence oppressive. I wandered aimlessly from room to room, my mind replaying the events of the evening. The bracelet, the dress, the glances they exchanged. It all seemed too deliberate, too staged. As I stood in their bedroom, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air, I noticed a small locked drawer in her dresser. I had never seen it before. Curiosity gnawed at me, its pull irresistible. What secrets lay hidden in that drawer? And why had I never noticed it until now? My fingers itched to open it, to uncover the truth that had been eluding me. But as I reached for the handle, a sound from the hallway stopped me in my tracks. My heart raced as I turned toward the door, half expecting to see her standing there, her eyes blazing with fury. But the hallway was empty, and yet the feeling of being watched lingered, sending a shiver down my spine. I stepped back, my resolve faltering. The drawer would have to wait. For now, all I could do was wait and watch, hoping that the answers I sought would reveal themselves in time. My father-in-law agreed enthusiastically, and then turned to me, asking, "Nada, would you like to come along?" I glanced at my mother-in-law, all dressed up and ready, and declined with a quick shake of my head. "I'm not in the mood." "You both go ahead," I replied. My mother-in-law interjected almost immediately, her tone sharp. "Yes, of course. Someone needs to stay at home. Let Nada stay. You and I can go. It's been a long time since we've had dinner outside." With that, she moved to the kitchen to prepare tea for my father-in-law, and I retreated to my room. A heavy weight settled on my chest as I sat on the edge of the bed. The days that should have been filled with love and companionship between Idris and me were being lived by his parents instead. Each time I saw my mother-in-law so elaborately dressed, flushed with excitement, it was like a dagger twisting in my heart. A short while later, my mother-in-law called out, announcing that they were leaving and asking me to lock the door securely. Begrudgingly, I stepped out of my room, locked the door behind them, and watched as they drove off. Returning to my room, I was greeted by the sound of my phone ringing. It was Idris. The heaviness in my heart transformed into a surge of anger. I answered the call and immediately started arguing. Taken aback, Idris's voice was laced with concern. "What's wrong, Nada? Why are you so upset all of a sudden?" In frustration, I vented everything. "You're sitting across the seas without a care for how I'm feeling here. Your parents' romance doesn't seem to end. Your mother has no sense of her age. Do you even know the kind of clothes she wears? The way she does her makeup? People in the neighborhood laugh at us, saying she's lost her mind. And to top it all off, I'm the one left burning with jealousy. She's living the life I should be living." I poured my heart out, not stopping to consider that I was talking about his mother, a person he deeply respected. My words were bitter, harsh, and relentless. After listening in silence, Idris finally spoke, his tone measured but firm. Nada, I think you've lost your perspective. If my mother enjoys dressing up and going out, what's it to you? She only goes out with my father. If you're so unhappy at home, why don't you go with them? Or visit your parents? Who's stopping you? Tears streaming down my face, I pleaded, just come back. Your hard-earned money is being squandered by your mother. Even now, she's gone out for dinner with it. I know you send her the money. Idris's voice rose, tinged with anger. Nada, that's enough. I've sent no money to my mother. Every penny I send goes to your account, and you manage the household expenses. If she's spending, it's her own money. You've let your insecurities take over, and it's unfair. Tell me, has she ever stopped you from going to your parents' home? Has she restricted your spending or caused you any trouble? If she hasn't, then you have no right to complain to me about her. I called because I wanted to talk to you, to check on you, but instead, all I get are baseless complaints about my mother. I don't know what else to say. Before I could respond, he hung up. The finality of the call struck me like a blow. The realization of what I'd done dawned on me too late. I tried calling him back, but his phone was switched off. Frustration and regret swirled within me as I sank to the floor, cradling my head in my hands. I had lit the fire that was now consuming my marriage. As I wept, my resentment towards my mother-in-law grew. In my eyes, she was the reason for everything. She had taken away the life I deserved. I even began to suspect that she was doing it all on purpose, deliberately punishing me. The thought consumed me, feeding my bitterness. I thought back to how it all began. Idris and I had been inseparable during high school. What started as friendship blossomed into love, and he proposed to me with his mother's approval. Back then, I believed she liked me, but now I saw it differently. Perhaps she'd only agreed to the marriage for Idris' sake, not because she genuinely wanted me as her daughter-in-law. When I first moved in after our wedding, Idris showered me with love and attention. My life felt like a dream come true, but love alone doesn't fulfill all needs. I had many desires and expectations, things I wanted Idris to fulfill. However, his job didn't allow for that, and soon he decided to go abroad for better opportunities. I was against the idea, but he insisted it was necessary for our future. At first, I thought it was temporary. He'd earn enough to return in a few months, and everything would go back to normal. But months turned into years, and he became more settled in his overseas job. He sent money regularly, urging me to buy whatever I needed. Initially, I indulged myself, buying clothes, makeup, and jewelry, but soon these things felt meaningless. The one person I wanted to share them with wasn't there. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law thrived. She wore the finest clothes, dressed to perfection, and held my father-in-law's hand as they left the house together. Watching them only deepened my sorrow, making me feel like a spectator in my own life. I wanted Idris to come back, but he had no plans to return. Good jobs like this don't come often, he'd say, and so the distance between us grew, not just physically but emotionally. Now, as I sat in the suffocating silence of my room, I realized how far apart we'd drifted. Our relationship felt lifeless, a shell of what it once was. The loneliness engulfed me, burning me from the inside out. My parents-in-law returned home after 10 p.m., exhausted from their outing. Without a word, they retreated to their bedroom, shutting the door behind them. Even the sight of that closed door ignited anger in me. The next morning, I approached my mother-in-law and said, "I need a servant. I can't manage all the housework alone." At first, she looked at me in surprise. After all, there weren't many people in the house, and she often helped me with the chores. She replied, "Why do you need a servant? If there's an issue, I'll handle it." But I was adamant. I needed an excuse for a confrontation, a chance to prove to Idris that his mother was unjust. "No," I insisted, "I want a servant. Otherwise, tomorrow you'll tell your son that I mistreated you." Her expression changed as she looked at me with astonishment. My father-in-law, who was present, intervened with his usual calmness. "All right, daughter-in-law," he said, "I'll arrange for a servant. Don't worry." Once again, he diffused the tension. It was always like this. Whenever I tried to create an argument, my in-laws managed to put an end to it. I had thought this matter would escalate, but to my surprise, my mother-in-law agreed easily. That evening, my father-in-law brought a 14-year-old boy to the house and introduced him. His name is Sham, he said. From today, he will live here and help around the house. Although Sham was just 14, he was tall, well-built, and surprisingly handsome. I couldn't help but wonder how my father-in-law had found him so quickly. Open the small room, my father-in-law instructed. He will clean it himself and live there. I was secretly relieved. At least now I had someone to take over some of the chores, and in a way, I had someone I could channel my anger toward. I handed Sham the keys to the room and ordered him, "Clean it thoroughly and wake up early tomorrow. From now on, you'll handle all the work." Without a word, he nodded and began cleaning. My parents-in-law, as usual, stayed in their room while I went to mine and called my sister. When I told her about the new servant, she sounded surprised. "Why do you even need a servant?" she asked. "Now that I have one, at least I'll have some peace," I replied. "Besides, I'll have someone to vent my frustrations on." She sighed. "Stop creating unnecessary arguments. Your husband is abroad, and your quarrels here will only upset him." I retorted, "If you saw my mother-in-law's bright red lips, you'd be angry too. She always wears such bold lipstick." "Why don't you wear lipstick too?" my sister suggested. "What's stopping you?" Her response infuriated me, and I hung up the phone. Instead of siding with me, she was trying to reason with me. The next morning, I started taking out my frustrations on Sham. I followed him around the house, scolding him for every little thing. My mother-in-law observed everything, but didn't say a word. I wanted her to intervene so that an argument would erupt, but she remained silent and eventually retreated to her room. Her calm demeanor only fueled my anger further. As I sat fuming on the bed, Sham approached me hesitantly. "Madam," he said softly, "I've finished all the work. Is there anything else you need me to do?" "Take your face and get out of here," I snapped. To my surprise, he knelt at my feet and asked, "Madam, are you upset? Is there anything I can do to help?" His unexpected concern brought tears to my eyes. Through my sobs, I said, "Just set me on fire. I'd rather die than live like this. It's better to jump off the roof than endure this loneliness." Hearing this, Sham sat beside me on the floor. "I'm here for you," he said. "Why do you feel so alone?" I looked at him in shock. It was only his first day, yet he had become so familiar. He continued, "Madam, I know your husband is abroad, and you must feel very lonely. That's why you're so angry. But you don't have to feel this way. Why don't we become friends?" The way he spoke, with deep, piercing eyes, left me stunned. He wasn't just familiar, he was crossing boundaries. "Stay in your place," I warned. "You're a servant. Act like one." "Why do you see me as just a servant?" he replied. "If you see me as your own, I could be of much more help to you." His words gave me pause. Could he really be useful to me? Slowly I said, "Come to my room tonight. I need to discuss something important." He nodded immediately, understanding my intent. For the rest of the day, I stayed in my room, planning my next move. That evening, as usual, my parents-in-law went out for their nightly walk. During their absence, I called Sham to my room. When he arrived, I laid out my plan. "I want to get rid of my mother-in-law," I said bluntly. "Every night before bed, she drinks a glass of milk. Can you add sleeping pills to it? I want her to sleep all the time so she won't have the chance to dress up and go out." I handed him a bottle of sleeping pills that I had bought for myself. "Every night, mix one pill into her milk and take it to her room. If anything happens to her, the blame won't fall on me. After all, my father-in-law was the one who brought you here. I can easily deny knowing you." Sham agreed without hesitation. That night, he added a pill to her milk and delivered it to her. The next morning, as expected, she didn't wake up early. My father-in-law on his way to work commented, "I don't know what's wrong with your mother. She's still asleep. When she wakes up, tell her to call me." Feigning concern, I replied, "Don't worry. With age, people don't stay young forever." He nodded and left. Around noon, my mother-in-law finally woke up, staggering as she emerged from her room. I rushed to her side, pretending to help. "What happened, Mother? Are you all right?" I asked, feigning innocence. When I helped her to the couch, my mother-in-law said weakly, "I don't know why, but I feel very dizzy." Feigning concern, I replied, "Mother, You've been going out for walks with father every day, eating out and staying active. You need to take care of yourself at your age." She listened silently, then lay back down in her room. That day, she neither got ready nor went out with my father-in-law. She remained bedridden and weak throughout the day. At night, my father-in-law expressed his worry and said, "I think I should take your mother to the hospital." I quickly intervened, saying, "There's no need for that. She's not unwell. It's just her age catching up with her. There's no need to burden her with medications." That night, as before, I instructed Sham to mix a sleeping pill into her milk. The next day, her condition hadn't improved. This continued for a week until my mother-in-law was completely bedridden, unable to even get up. My father-in-law remained concerned, but I managed to convince him each time not to take her to the hospital. 1 week later, to my utter shock, Idris returned home unexpectedly. Seeing him at the door, I was stunned. Without wasting a moment, he asked about his parents and then rushed to their room. The sight of his mother's condition left him horrified. He immediately took her to the hospital against my objections. After a brief checkup and some tests, the doctor revealed the truth. She had been consuming sleeping pills regularly. That was it. My father-in-law's fury erupted. The first person he blamed was Sham, who confessed everything. He revealed that I had instructed him to mix the pills into her milk. Idris turned to me, his eyes blazing with anger and disgust. "Have you no shame?" he demanded. "Because of you, my mother could have died. What kind of hatred do you harbor for her? She's never done anything to harm you." Seeing the hatred in his eyes broke me. I burst into tears and tried to justify my actions. "You left me all alone and went abroad. I was lonely here while your parents carried on as if they were still in love. Seeing your mother filled me with jealousy. I couldn't bear it." Idris's voice rose in anger. "I didn't go abroad for my mother. I went for you. Your demands were so extravagant that I couldn't fulfill them on my salary. Every time I couldn't meet one of your expectations, you'd sulk and withdraw from me. That's why I left. But even that wasn't enough for you. You couldn't even tolerate my mother's happiness. In your eyes, she may be old, but to my father, she's still his wife. To a husband, age doesn't matter. Love does. My father takes joy in seeing her dressed up because she sacrificed her entire life for him and me. Despite his meager salary, she managed the household without ever complaining. Now, when they finally have some comfort, you begrudge her for fulfilling the dreams she'd set aside? What did her happiness ever take away from you?" Idris continued, his voice filled with bitterness. "I wanted to stay here with you, but you couldn't live like other women. You had to demand everything from me, and that's why I left. But I never imagined you'd go so far as to harm my mother. Go back to your parents' house. I can't bear to live with you anymore." He demanded that I leave the house. But before I could respond, my father-in-law intervened. "It's not entirely her fault," he said. "We should have understood her loneliness and sadness. Perhaps we didn't show her enough kindness and affection. Don't send her away. We'll be more mindful moving forward." Even my mother-in-law, who had every right to be angry, was apologetic. "Forgive me," she said softly. "I won't dress up like this again if it bothers you. Please don't feel disheartened." Her words hit me like a slap. My mother-in-law had never been like the stereotypical ones I'd heard about. She had always overlooked my mistakes and tolerated my bitterness. She was even willing to sacrifice her happiness to make me feel better. For the first time, I realized how wrong I'd been. I apologized to both my in-laws and to Idris. I begged him not to go back abroad, promising to adjust to our life together however I could. Idris forgave me at his father's insistence and stayed. From that day on, I changed. I let go of my endless demands and learned to value the love and relationships around me. I realized that material possessions paled in comparison to the bond of family. My in-laws had given me nothing but respect and love, yet I had betrayed their trust. My father-in-law had hired a servant to ease my burden, and I had manipulated him into harming his own employers. But those days were over. I had also come to understand the sacrifices my mother-in-law had made in her youth. She had spent her entire life putting her family first. Now, in her old age, she deserved to enjoy herself, to dress up and fulfill the dreams she had once set aside. Why do we laugh at older people for trying to look good? Why do we judge them for wanting to live a little? Instead of ridiculing them, we should remember the countless sacrifices they've made. If older people wish to reclaim a piece of their youth, why should we deny them that happiness? Don't they have the right to live with dignity and joy?